This video is a tutorial for Microsoft Excel for the iPad. Excel on the iPad is very similar in terms of layout and functionality to its desktop counterpart. It doesn't have all of the features available, but as an app, it's probably the most capable spreadsheet app for the iPad. Now this video is going to be quite an in-depth overview of what the app can do, and you might be looking for very specific functions within the app. So in the description below, you'll find a list of contents in this video to allow you to skip to the bits that you want to see. So when you open up Excel on the iPad, this is the screen that you'll see. You'll see essentially two panels. The main panel contains a list of templates for you to use, and on the left-hand side, we have a strip of different sections for us to get going with the app. We're going to start at the bottom where it says settings. This contains some basic settings for the app, including signing into your Office 365 account. There is a section for you to get help and feedback. And then cloud locations contains a list of cloud services that you have logged into already. So if you've logged into your Office 365 account, you'll see access to your OneDrive. You can also add a variety of locations, and here's a list of what's available. There are some cloud services missing, for example Google Drive, but it does include things like Dropbox and Box and various other services for you to use. Below that, you have the option to turn push notifications on or off. This is useful if you work collaboratively because it will give you alerts for every time someone shares a file with you. Below that, we have a setting for the Apple Pencil. We can toggle on or off whether we want the Apple Pencil to always draw with ink. Now what that means is by default, if you were to take the Apple Pencil and start drawing on the screen, ink would appear. You'd start drawing on your document. Now you might not want that, particularly if you want to use the Apple Pencil to navigate around a document instead. So you can turn this setting on or off. And finally, we have a section for privacy settings that allow you to opt out of certain connection experiences, and you can also view their privacy statement. The open section is fairly self-explanatory. It allows us to open a document. Documents can be opened from the iPad or from the Files app if you subscribe to iCloud Drive. And also from here, just like before, you can add additional cloud services. The next item up is shared. These are all the shared documents you have available. So if someone has shared a document with you to work on collaboratively, you'll find all of these documents here. Next, we have recent documents. This is also fairly self-explanatory. You can open up any documents that you've been working on recently. Now you'll notice on my screen it's separated into two sections. We have pinned and we have older documents. There might be some documents that you open on a regular basis that you want to keep at the top of this list. And this is where we can use a function called pinning. You'll notice next to each document we have three icons, the middle of which allows us to pin a document to the top. So if I just click on pin here, that automatically moves to the top section of this list and will always be here until I unpin it. To the left of the pin icon, we have a share icon. This allows us to send a copy using Microsoft Outlook, for example, or we can generate a link that we can then send through another messaging service to allow other people to view or edit that document. On the other side of the pin icon to the right, we have three dots. This again gives us the option to share a document, to pin it, remove it from recent, and we can rename, move, or delete this document. And at the bottom here, we can also view the document properties. And now we'll return to the first screen that we looked at. Once again, this contains a variety of different templates for different purposes, ranging from sales reports and registers to documents that help you budget. For this tutorial, we're going to start a blank workbook. So this is the main interface for Excel on the iPad, and you'll notice it looks very similar to the desktop equivalent. We have a main workspace at the bottom, and we have our menu items at the top, including a number of tabs which give us additional editing options. To navigate around our document, we can use 2 fingers to swipe on the iPad or on a trackpad to move left and right and up and down. We can also make use of pinch to zoom into our document or to zoom out. In the top left corner we have an icon, which is a piece of paper with 3 dots. This is our file menu. The first thing we can do is click this green save button. From here we can choose the location of where we save it and give the document a title. By default, Microsoft Excel will automatically save any changes you make, so you never have to hit the save button again. This autosave feature can actually be turned off, and you can manually save if you prefer to do that. Other items on the file menu include saving a copy, sending a copy. We can export as PDF or ODS. From here we can print, we can view the document history and properties. We can also get help and feedback to use this app. If I have a look down in the bottom left corner, we can see that this current worksheet is called Sheet 1. If I tap on it with my finger, I can rename, duplicate, or move this tab. I'm going to choose Rename. To the right of this, there's a plus icon, and from here I can create new sheets. If I want to duplicate a spreadsheet, I can tap on its title and choose Duplicate. If I tap and hold on a title, I can drag and move it around to change the order. Again, if I tap on the title, you can also see I have the option to hide or to delete a sheet. If I want to enter information into a cell, I can double tap on it and begin typing. If I make a mistake when entering in information, I can make use of undo or redo. There are 2 ways to do this. Next to the file menu at the top, I have 2 arrows. The one on the left is to undo, and the one on the right is to redo. You can also make use of the gestures on the iPad. If I do a 3-finger swipe from right to left, it will undo what I've just entered in. If I do a 3-fingered swipe from left to right, it will redo it. If you'd like to resize a column or a row, this is really simple to do. Along the top you can see A, B, C, D, E, F, G, etc. If I tap on one of these letters, it selects an entire column. And towards the right of the letter you can see 2 lines. If I click, hold and drag, I can make the column wider or narrower. The same works with rows. On the left hand side you can see the numbers going from 1 to 32. If I tap or click on a row, 2 lines appear underneath the number. And if I tap and hold and drag, I can change the height of that row. If I tap on a cell and then tap it again, a contextual menu appears with a few handy shortcuts. This allows me to either cut and copy the contents of a cell, and once you've copied, a paste item will also appear on this menu. You can also tap edit to change the contents. You can add a comment if you're working collaboratively, or you can clear the cell entirely to get rid of all of the information. If I want to select multiple cells, this is very simple. I tap on the first cell. You'll notice there's a green outline around this cell, and in the bottom right corner there's a small square. If I tap and hold on this, I can make an expanded selection either by dragging down or by dragging across. With this information selected, let's have a look at some of the additional editing options available at the top of the screen. This is all found underneath the Home tab. The first thing I can do is change the typeface. Office comes with a number of different fonts available, but also fonts available through iOS are also found here. Next to that, we can change the font size by clicking on this number and choosing from a preset number here, or tapping the plus and minus icons to change the size. The next icons allow us to make it in bold, italicize it, or underline the text. If we move a few icons over, we can change the font color. This icon is the letter A with the color in a block underneath it. This menu allows me to choose from a number of different colors. At the bottom, we can choose more colors if you want a very specific color type. I'm now going to select all of the contents of my table. Back on the Home menu, we can see an icon which consists of 4 squares. This allows us to change the borders of our table. Under this menu, we can choose to have no border, or to have borders around every cell. The additional options are fairly self-explanatory. At the bottom of this menu, we have a few additional options, including changing the line style. This can be a solid line or a series of dots and dashes. We can also change the line color. With some cells selected, let's have a look at some of the other additional options. Next to font color, we have alignment. We can change the alignment from left or the center to the right, and also with different size cells, top, middle, or bottom. A few more icons to the right, we can see a small rectangle with a paintbrush. This allows us to choose from a number of preset cell styles. This will change the fill color of the cells, as well as the text color. To the left of this option, we have 2 more icons. The first of which is to merge cells. If I make a selection of a few different cells and tap on the merge cells icon, it merges my selection into a single cell. Next to that, we have an icon that allows us to wrap the text. If I enter in a large amount of information into a single cell, that text will keep on going. If I make a selection of a large amount of text and choose wrapping, it will now keep that information to the width of the cell and make use of line breaks. I'm now going to choose all of the numbers in my table and show you the number format menu. This icon says ABC123. From here I can choose a number of different number formats. I can increase or decrease the number of decimal places. I can choose whether it's just a standard number, or I can choose it to be a currency. Other options including date and time, having my number as a percentage or a fraction, or just having it as a text format. If once I've created some data, I want to insert some rows or columns, the next icon along allows me to do that. This icon is a white rectangle with a green plus icon in the top left and a red X in the bottom right. This allows me to insert rows or columns, or to delete rows or columns. The next icon along allows me to format the cell size. I can choose a specific height or width, or I can choose Auto Fit, which will change the width of the column based on the information I have inside. The next icon along is called Clear. This gives me three different options. I can clear everything, the data as well as the formatting, or I can just clear the formatting or just clear the contents. I'm now going to clear all of the formatting that I've just created. This returns the data to how it looked before. Next to that, we have the AutoSum menu. I'm going to select the cell underneath all the numbers. And from here, I've got a few different options. The first of which is the sum, which will give me a total of all the numbers above it. Or I can choose an average, or the number of different entries that I have, or I can display the maximum or minimum amount. Next to that, I have the sort and filter menu. If I want to rearrange my data with the highest number of sales first, I can select the data, choose sort, and then choose sort ascending or descending. Notice this also changes the corresponding column which contains the months. Also within this menu, I have a function called Show Filter Buttons, and I can add a filter to this specific cell. This adds a little drop-down menu, which allows me to reorder the numbers from this area of the spreadsheet, from smallest to largest or largest to smallest. Let's have a look at the next tab of our menu. This is called Insert. And from here I can insert a number of different elements into my spreadsheet. The first option allows me to insert a table. When I choose this, a new menu item appears at the end called Table. From here I can insert additional rows above or below, and I can delete them as required. From here I also have some style options. This includes whether or not I want a header row, a total row, whether I need to have a first column or a last column, banded rows which gives me alternating colours for each row, or banded columns which does the same thing but with columns instead. We also have table styles, which allows us to change the colour scheme of the table. And alt text allows me to add a description to this element of the spreadsheet. Back on the Insert menu, the next item along allows me to insert data from a picture. This is a relatively new feature which is really exciting. If I have a piece of paper on my desk with a table on it, I can use Excel to take a picture of that table, and it will convert it into digital information which I can then edit inside the app. Next, we have photos. This allows me to insert a photo from my camera roll into the spreadsheet. Once I've inserted the picture, I have a few different editing options. First of all, with the picture selected, you'll notice a series of dots on squares around the edge. If I tap, hold and drag, it allows me to resize the image. I can then tap and hold on the image to move it to a different location. Just above the selected image, you'll see a white circle with an arrow. If I tap and hold on that, it allows me to rotate the image. With the image selected, you'll notice a new tab appears at the top called Picture. This gives me some additional editing options. Styles contains a number of preset different styles, which include borders and shadows, and changing the shape of the image. I can also add these effects manually with the next few icons. For example, shadow will add a drop shadow to the image. Reflection does exactly what it says on the tin. Also on this menu, I can choose to rotate the image or flip it vertically or horizontally. I can also crop the image with the next icon along. When I choose this option, you'll see a contextual menu appear, which will give me a few different cropping options. You can also crop it manually by tapping and holding on the rectangles that appear along the edge of the image. When I'm done, I can just hit crop again. The next icon is called Reset. It will allow you to reset the picture and reset its size. And once again, alt text allows me to add a description to this element on the spreadsheet. If I want to delete the image, I can tap once on the image and choose delete. Back on the insert menu, the next icon along is called camera. It allows me to take a picture to insert directly into the spreadsheet. And this will give me the same editing options as we just discussed. Next to that, I can choose to add a shape. This menu contains a list of preset shapes and arrows. When I insert a shape, you'll notice that a shape menu item appears at the top. This once again gives me some more editing options. From here I can insert additional shapes. I can change the style. I can change the fill color. And I can change the outline color. At the end of this menu, I can choose to rotate it. And I can add a description to this element. And just like with images, you'll notice with it selected, I have my squares and my circles along the edge, allowing me to resize the shape. You'll also notice that that round white icon with the arrow in is also here, allowing me to tap, hold, and rotate the image. If I want to delete the shape, I can tap on it once and choose delete. Back on the insert menu, I can choose to insert a text box. And with this text box selected, it gives me the same editing options as it does with shapes, meaning I can insert additional shapes, change the style, the fill color, the outline, etc. Next to that, I have icons. And from here I can insert a number of different preset icons onto my spreadsheet. I can select the icon, and at the bottom you can see the insert button. Once again, a new menu item appears at the end, and it gives me the same editing options as before, including changing the style, the fill, the outline color, rotating, cropping, and adding a description. The next couple of icons allows us to insert charts and graphs. I'm going to select the data on my table. And first of all, I'm going to choose recommended. From here, it gives me some suggested chart or graph styles to use. When I've chosen my chart, you'll notice a new menu item appears at the end once again. I can change the style of the chart. The layouts icon gives me a number of different options for how the chart should look. The elements icon allows me to change specific features of the graph, including the axes, whether or not I want to have axis titles, whether the contents of the graph should contain the numbers, whether or not I want to see grid lines, and a whole host of other options. I can also change the colour scheme of the graph. And the styles menu also gives me some additional options for how the graph or the chart should look. And once again, I can add a description to this element of the spreadsheet by choosing Alt Text. Just like with an image, you'll notice with the chart selected, you can see a number of circles and squares along the edge. And this allows me to resize the chart as I see fit. If I tap and hold on the chart, I can move it to a different location on the spreadsheet. The next icon along allows me to insert a chart, which functions much the same way as we just discussed, but I have many more options to choose from. Also under the Insert menu, I can add a comment if I'm working collaboratively. I can insert a hyperlink to a different website. And we also have the Add-ins menu. Add-ins are some functions available within the Microsoft Office apps which allow us some additional functionality. For example, I can insert a map or a people graph. The next tab along on this menu is called Draw, and this is where we make use of the Apple Pencil. As discussed earlier, the default mode when I tap on the screen of my Apple Pencil is to draw. If I want to use the Apple Pencil as a navigation tool, I can choose the first option, which is called Select Objects. And from here, it will no longer draw, but I can use the Apple Pencil to select cells or data on the spreadsheet. The third icon along is an eraser tool. If I tap on the arrow next to it, I can change the eraser size. Next are all the different pen options I have available. And for each one, there's an arrow icon next to it, allowing me to change the size and the colour. I have pens and pencils and different highlighters. Using the plus icon, I can insert additional pens and pencils and highlighters of different colours. If I tap and hold on one of these pens or pencils, I can actually change the order. If you don't have an Apple Pencil, you can still draw on your spreadsheet using the final toggle at the end called Draw with Touch. And from here, you can use your finger to draw onto the spreadsheet. The next tab along gives me a whole host of options for formulas. The first menu item, called AutoSum, is exactly the same as we saw on the home menu earlier. The Recent menu lists all of our most recently used formulas. From here, we have a number of different categories of formula. It would take me many hours to explain what these do, so I'm going to have to assume some prior knowledge here. But these are helpfully categorized to financial formulas, logical, text, date and time, lookup and reference, and maths and trigonometry. We also have some additional options for statistics, engineering, information, database, and compatibility. So in terms of the formulas available, this is quite a powerful app. The next tab along is for data and contains actually the same sorting and filtering as we saw earlier on in this tutorial, with a selection of data being made. I can choose to sort ascending or descending, or apply a filter. The Review tab is mainly used if you're working collaboratively. This allows me to add a comment to the spreadsheet and to show comments from other people. On the View tab, this gives us some basic functions in terms of viewing the information. I can show or hide the formula bar, show and hide the grid lines, headings, the sheet tabs, and I can change the view of the spreadsheet from right to left. We can also find our zoom in and zoom out functions here. And it's from here we can also freeze the panes. So if I have some information that I always want to see along the top, I can select the cell, choose freeze panes, and I can choose to freeze the first row and the first column, which means when I scroll, the first column is always in view. Or I can choose freeze panes. In the top right of the screen, we can see a few other icons. In the middle, we have a magnifying glass, allowing us to search for information on the spreadsheet. The settings icon next to it allows us to make use of find and replace, and to change the parameters to searching within just the sheet or within the entire workbook, and whether or not I want to match the case or the entire cell contents. Next to that, we have our share icon, which allows us to upload a copy somewhere or to send it via an app such as Microsoft Outlook. The first of these three icons is a kind of help function. From here I can type in something that I'd like to do, and Excel will help me do it. This is a nice easy way of adding things to your spreadsheet and avoid having to hop through different menus. So that's the end of this overview of Microsoft Excel for the iPad. Now you'll notice there's some things I haven't covered, for example, conditional formatting, which isn't really available within this app. You can, however, open spreadsheets which have been created on the desktop, which do use things like conditional formatting, and it will work fine. But Excel on the iPad doesn't currently allow us to make use of these features. Hopefully this will be something that comes soon. So that's the end of this tutorial for Microsoft Excel for the iPad. If you found this video useful, please like, comment and subscribe, and I'll be back soon with another video.